humans are becoming more robotic and robots are becoming more human. And at this equilibrium, we're seeing that people can very easily sniff out AI, and they prefer to do business with people they already know, like, and trust.
Thank you so much for joining Go to Network Academy, Richard. Of course, we've been working with you for 2 years plus, probably more now. So excited to have you here and share all your knowledge and expertise on Go to Network, but of course also go to market at large and your take on things. So start with yourself. What's Moxie? What have you been building?
I think it's great how when we met 2 years ago, the Swarm was already building a product that was aligned with my philosophy. And when I think about my 10 years or so being one of the first or the first go-to-market hire early stage SaaS companies, I thought about how when we were driving pipeline, what was always working the best was leaning on existing relationship. And I find it fairly ironic that the best performing channel for a vast amount of industries is referrals, yet referrals are the least likely to be predictable. When we were building my current company, Moxie GTM, we were thinking that the biggest macro problem is not pipeline, it's process. And when most companies are trying to solve a pipeline problem, they try to get more leads and more tools. That's not the answer to people's pipeline problem. You first have to solve the process problem, which means you have to find a way to consolidate tech stack where every seller has multiple tabs. There's a tool for everything. Then you need to find a way to run experiments to find what works and what doesn't work. And then you need to build enablement to scale what you see working from an experimentation standpoint. And so this is what we're doing at Moxie, is finding a way to solve the go-to-market process problem through consolidation, experimentation, and enablement. At first, we were thinking to solve this problem, we need to focus on the top of the funnel, lead gen. What we're seeing time and time again, and what we're focusing on now, is mid-funnel. And most companies have a lead nurture problem and not a lead generation problem. And so we're trying to think about ways where we could focus on people who already know your brand, who are already in your funnel in some way, but are getting stuck because you're treating them the same. And one way that we're trying to push those folks down the funnel is primarily through existing relationships, where we could find that a key moment that gets people to convert to a loyal customer is knowing someone who already uses your product. And so find a way to activate those high value customers that a brand may have and turn them into referrers, and then map those existing relationships to people who are already in your funnel to really increase velocity of the pipeline.
Love it. That's a great use case of relationship data. Can you give us a couple of examples of, client projects?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are familiar with By Design's philosophy of the bow tie, where on the left side of the bow tie, you have people before they're a customer, and on the right side, you have when they are a customer. And I think the best way to solve your go-to-market problem and your process problem is starting on the right side of the bow tie. Focus on your existing customers and try to identify who those high-value customers are based on product data, how much they spent, and then build a look-like model to figure out how you could identify those high-value customers on that left side of the bow tie, pre-sales. And why this matters when it comes to relationship mapping and what we did for Pavilion. What we did with them is we realized that the key moment that mattered to get someone to become a member is not a sales call. It's a personal relationship that person already has with an existing member and getting them to an in-person event. What we did is we looked at their existing members and we identified the people that we considered to be raving fans. And we identified 10 members that had indicated that they're open to becoming referrers. And instead of asking them to look for someone in their network, we did all that heavy lifting where we used the relationship mapping and found people who used to work with some of those members and who matched their ideal customer profile. When it was time to do outreach, we referenced the name of that person that they already knew was a member. Hey, Richard, I saw you used to work with Olivier at Salesforce. Olivier is one of our most active members of our Austin chapter. We have an in-person event coming up next week. It's an executive lunch Would you want to join us? And we saw that this campaign had a 3.5 times higher conversion rate than their previous efforts, where they were trying to turn people into a sales meeting or reaching out to people when there was no relationship. It shows that if you start at the end by identifying and activating your high value customers and using those insights, and then having the right moments that matter, you'll definitely increase your velocity at every stage of the funnel.
Love it. That is such a smart way. You get the opt-in up front. People say, yes, you can mention my name. You don't ask them for an intro, you ask them to be mentioned.
I think what's also important to note about this use case is, as I was mentioning before, referrals are the highest performing channel, but it's hard to make that a repeatable channel. Yes, we would have much higher conversion rates if we would have waited to ask for that warm intro, but it would have taken much more time, slightly less effort to do it this way. And now the way this can become repeatable is every single month they identify a new cohort of raving fans who are members, get them to opt in, and then run this play all over again. So now it's repeatable.
There's no limit, and then more people join, and then more people get to become referrers, and so on. Where do you think warm intros are valid? Is there a space for and time for warm intros with this data? Because I know on LinkedIn you took the stand, and you need to take a stand and plant a flag somewhere. No warm intros, and there's all those plays, and warm intros are one of them. But what do you think? Where does it make sense to, or should you focus name dropping thing?
If you think about the process for asking for the warm intro, it's a lot of steps and a great deal of effort. And yes, tools like the Swarm make it a whole lot easier through automation, but it still requires expending some social capital to ask for that intro. And then it requires that person that you ask for the intro to do a little bit of work. And again, I know it's so much easier with tools like the Swarm, but it's still some steps and it's still some effort. And you have to think how you optimize your go-to-market plays based on ROE, return on effort. And the way that we do this for our clients is create prioritization or a scoring model where, let's say if someone works at your target account, showing some kind of intent signals on their website, filled out a form, that could be a reason to extend some of that effort and social capital to ask for the intro. Then you also have to have a high confidence that this person knows that prospect. And thankfully, tools like the Swarm increases the confidence of understanding that relationship because of alumni or work overlap or frequency and recency of LinkedIn engagement. If you have all those things working for you, where you have high confidence, there's a strong relationship, your target account, and intent signals, yes, it's worth asking for the intro. For times where you don't have the warm intro, you're not too sure about the relationship, there's no intent signals, that would be something where you send them an email and you reference someone that they think they know. That's a way to triage and better prioritize where you extend your effort in your go-to-market plays.
Right.
Yeah, our focus is on Series A to Series B, where you have a good pool of customers, you have some indicators of strong product market fit. Even when we've worked with customers who are a little bit earlier in their maturity, one way that we've helped them think about tapping into their network is this more 360 view of their network, where before they might think of their network as their investors, their alumni. Now we try to have the 360 view of how do you identify those more repeatable relationships? And so one of them is loyal social media followers, where if you're creating content on LinkedIn, you're going to see patterns where the same people are engaging with your content. I think a lot of people think too small and need to think bigger when it comes to how to leverage their extended network.
You build custom systems for each client?
Yeah. So we try to base everything we do based on those 3 pillars of consolidation, experimentation, enablement. And the consolidation piece is we don't want our clients to adopt a new tab or a new workflow. And so whether they use a prospecting tool, Log Growth Machine, or Outreach, or they use Salesforce or HubSpot, we're running everything that we do into those systems. And instead of them having a tab for the Swarm, another tab for scraping or mining LinkedIn data, we're essentially aggregating all this into one actionable ledger. And that's where we start to run the experiments. And once we find what works, then it becomes a scalable process where it's a unified flow of leads directly into their existing systems. And then it's put into a workflow where it already has the right messaging, the right channel, and we help companies figure out who to call next and what to say.
Nice. You take it all the way to that leads, and then of course it's like the sales team or the go-to-market team that's going to action that.
Yeah, because I think a lot of companies think they could solve their go-to-market process problem by buying some kind of self-service SaaS tool. I think you're going to see this more and more where a lot of these self-service SaaS companies where they could, spin up platforms fairly easy with AI, but the way to differentiate is with superior customer experience. They're going to need to either partner with agencies like us or build some kind of internal support system to make sure that people know how to solve their process problem by buying their SaaS.
Yeah, that's super interesting. It's tough to be service plus software in one org. It's different people, different things. It's tough to actually run on both sides, agencies and products, two different companies. Bring them in one is tricky, but if done well, I think that's the key. Have a customer success function that's so involved that it's basically a service, and you price accordingly. Let's talk about the big AI. Let's talk about the A word. How do you see it fit in here? Obviously, relationships are super high touch. It's like people's relationships, career, friends, colleagues. And it's very valuable and very personal and very touchy, I guess, too, and private to some extent. AI seems to be coming from the other end of the field with high volume and can be hyper personalized, but totally potentially inauthentic and so on. Those worlds seems to be colliding. Do you think how do you see those two approaches? Are they completely opposite? Should AI be a part of that process that you described? Is it already in your case, Moxie?
I think we're reaching a very interesting time where humans are becoming more robotic and robots are becoming more human. And at this equilibrium, we're seeing that people can very easily sniff out AI and they prefer to do business with people they already know, like, and trust. This is where these warm relationships come into play because they at least want to know, like, and trust you. But the best use of AI right now is to identify who is worth a human touch. The best use of AI is not just do mass blasts, fake personalization. It's not about more leads. It's about having a smaller audience of highly curated leads where it's now worth a human touch to reach out because using tools like the Swarm, we could use AI to create a super targeted list based on predictive analytics or intent signals. And then from that list, we could say who from this list has existing relationships with our existing clients. And now you have an even smaller targeted list. So then you could go one by one and spend 2 or 3 minutes personalizing a message that only a human can do, adding relevance that you can't even give context to an LLM to prompt. And then from there, it's like worth actually the human touch to reach out versus just trying to have a human touch to like hundreds of leads. And so this is where I think really the market is going is identifying those top 20% of your hottest leads and then having a human touch and leaning on an existing relationship to cut through that noise.
So this seems to indicate that you need less humans, and this seems to indicate that like large teams of SDRs that are meeting all day, full calendars, and just like blasting and stuff is sort of dying. How do you see the sales functions, entry level sales functions evolve? Are they going away? Are those people then rescaling into other things, or where do you see that going? What's the best way to prepare for that?
I don't think the SDR function is going to go away anytime soon. I do think teams are going to get a whole lot smaller. So maybe instead of having 4 SDRs, you can do one. And the SDR's role is to not create demand, but capture demand that's already been created. Because now there's a plethora of data out there where people are able to collect all these breadcrumbs that would indicate intent. And then that SDR would be tasked with super hot leads and then having some kind of warm touch and knowing what to say because you're pushing that prospect to a key moment that matter or key value driver that's indicated as a way to drive value for your best customers. And so I think, it's about the SDR is reaching out to people who are already really hot. And now you know what to say when they reach out. But it's not about mass blast SDRs. And so that's how I see the market going in terms of, top of funnel.
That makes a sense. I see, the go-to-market engineer or whatever we call it, right? being a key part of the team and maybe having a market team. And then I think people who are experienced and have relationships themselves, definitely staying on payroll, right? You have 20 years of experience in the field, your relationships, yourself are a massively networked person. So I think people in sales entry, in marketing and sales entry, it's like, yeah, learning GTM engineering, and people are doing that obviously. And then for SDRs, it's just like being a relationship, like very developing your network very early, then and then yeah, getting in those companies that are doing it the right way, because that's the model, that's the new model that's already happening.
I think my hot take based on your own vision about go to market is that I think the go to market engineer function will go away quicker than the SDR function. And the reason why, back to what I was saying around, self-service SaaS not being able to get you to the business outcome, and having so many tools being developed that require some kind of engineer to connect all the pieces together, or you have a platform so complex like Clay that you need some kind of technical person to figure out and operationalize. But I think the way that go to market and technology is moving is that instead of multiple tabs and clicking into things, you're going to go into a single UX of a prompt like you would ChatGPT, and you would say something like, find me the 20 hottest leads who have been using our product for 10 days and who live in Austin because we're hosting a special dinner in Austin next month and we want to invite them. You can imagine, to get that kind of data, you need to go to your CRM, you need to go to LinkedIn, you have to go to all these separate systems. But now the way technology is, you have MCP connecting all these different things. And then you'll get a single output that says, hey, these are the 10 people. I'm going to deploy this into your outreach or in your Salesforce, and I'm going to already have the right template set up for you. So when the SDR goes to send the message, the SDR would go to outreach, is already populated. The SDR would spend 2 minutes personalizing, and then it goes out. So that whole process might need a go-to-market engineer to set up, but then afterwards, it's fairly operationalized. And so I think we're moving into a world where it's a single UX and less complex software that won't need a go-to-market engineer.
I hope you're right. Less complexity and stuff. I think there's always tools and companies getting started that are going to be, there's a new MCP server to connect and maintain and expand and so on. But we'll see. I love that vision.